Welcome everybody to the Millennial Investor Show. Today's guest is Trevor McGregor. He is a master platinum coach with over 20,000 coaching calls, coaching CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, millionaires, billionaires, that's with the B, and elite athletes. Also coaching real estate investors like Joe Fairless, Dan Hanford, and Todd Dexheimer, which is how we actually met through Todd's North Star Real Estate Conference. Awesome event. He's also an active and passive investor as well. His mission statement is helping others achieve life-changing transformation. Thank you for being on the show, Trevor. I greatly appreciate it. So,
Well, thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be here.
can you tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself? Me doing research is something, but coming from you is a lot better.
Yeah, again, my name is Trevor McGregor, and I am a high performance, peak performance real estate coach and mentor. I'm also an active real estate investor. I'm also a passive real estate investor, and I've been doing this for just under 20 years now. And I really, really believe that real estate is one of the greatest wealth vehicles on the planet. And as I help people all over the United States buy real estate, all over Canada, all over Europe, Asia, New Zealand, even as far away as Australia, there's one thing that I know that really helps make people successful. And there's really, no doubt about it, that it's having the key performance mindset and then modeling best practices, which is something that I know that you're doing, to
Yes,
build your empire. So I help people navigate all of the ups and downs of life, business, real estate, raising capital, all that good stuff. And I love it.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you got started into real estate, like your little history of your shift into real estate background?
Yeah, I'd love to share it. And it's an awkward story to tell, but it's the absolute truth. And, when I was in my late 20s, I had a chance to invest in a restaurant group that was expanding. And I thought, wow, this is my big chance to make a lot of money and maybe retire rich and young. And I pumped in a lot of my own 401k. I pumped in a lot of my savings. I borrowed money off of friends. And Anthony, I even convinced my own parents to take out a six-figure second mortgage on the
Wow.
family home. So
Wow.
I took all this money and pumped it into this restaurant expansion. And literally for the first year and a half, things went really, really well. And then we all know what happened in 2001. When those planes hit the towers, people got scared. The
Hmm.
economy really stopped because we didn't know if we're going to be in a third world war or what the heck was going on. And our restaurant expansion at that time was so aggressive. We were, expanding in 5 major cities across 3 Canadian provinces, and we just couldn't hang on. We were growing too fast. It imploded. And to cut the long story short, I lost all of the money that I put into that restaurant venture.
Wow. That's something to experience, to have your family and friends, all of them on board with you because you got this great opportunity, then it doesn't go well.
That's it.
Something outside happens, but it doesn't go well.
That's it. And I was like really, really concerned because there I was in my early 30s then. And literally, I was broke. I was in debt. I started to gain weight, and it had a really profound effect on my marriage, and not in a good way. So I was
Understandable.
not sure what I was going to do. And just like anybody else who hits rock bottom, what do you do when you hit rock bottom? Well, you got to find help. And for me, thank God I found a coach.
Hmm.
And I hired this coach, and he was a really, really, really solid guy. And he said to me, Trevor, what happened to you is unfortunate. I wish it didn't happen, but let's face it, you're still young. You got a family, you got 2 little kids at the time. I believe that you can get up, dust yourself off, and, find a way to, get back on the horse and ride it. And I said, well, that sounds good, but I had no idea how I was going to make back the money, yet alone tell my parents I had lost 6 figures of the family home. And he said to me one thing, Anthony, that changed my life. He said, have you ever thought of investing in real estate?
Hmm.
And I said, real estate? Well, I guess I could, but I don't know anything about it. And he said, you can use other people's money to literally invest in real estate. And then you can leverage that money to invest in more real estate. And eventually that's what I did. I started to read all the books, started to go to the local meetups, started to listen to CDs and apply what he did. And I bought one little townhouse, right? And that was a really good experience because then I bought a condo. And then I leveraged the, equity out of both of those, and I bought my first duplex. And that's when I learned what cash flow was. And then the next year I went on to buy more duplexes, some fourplexes. And literally in 2.5 years, I made enough money to pay off all of my loans. And yes, I even paid my parents back in full.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned that you was reading books, and what was one of the first books you read that helped you get started into real estate investing? That said, okay, this is how I could do it.
You may have heard of it. It's a little purple book called, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I don't know any real estate investor that hasn't read it. And that's when the light bulb started to go off between what do average people do to earn a living and what of other make a fortune. And I didn't want to just earn a living. I wanted to, absolutely understand that real estate was one of the greatest wealth vehicles to make an impact. And if you make an impact, you can make an income. So that book was one of the ones that got me started. There's a ton of other ones that I read at the time, but really it was literally working with a coach that got me to believe that there was a new way of thinking and a new way of behaving. And when I started to apply what he was saying, it started to work.
Yep.
And the cool part about this was when I started to achieve success, other people around me, family and friends, wanted to know what the heck I was doing, to go out there and buy property. And they'd say to me, Trevor, will you show us what you're doing? And I said, sure, buy me a beer and I'd be happy to, go over what I'm doing. So we literally sat down and I showed them my checklists and showed them what I was doing. And literally within a month's time, the people that I showed that to, they went out and bought their first rental property. And they were super proud. 2 months later, they bought their second property. And a short time later, they bought their third property, right? And then people started to ask them and they said, well, it's Trevor, so go talk to Trevor. And so I think that's when I really, really started to get that coaching bug to help other people. And that's when I literally, left my time just doing corporate and real estate and went out there and started to work for Tony Robbins. I became a Tony Robbins coach.
Awesome. How long were you working for Tony Robbins? How did you get involved into that side of the coaching?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I worked for Tony Robbins for half a decade as a master platinum coach, one of his top coaches. And really the way I got into that is I was working with a Tony Robbins coach myself. And he said to me, Trevor, you're so passionate about people. You're so passionate about real estate. You've got all this background in the business corporation. And he said, Tony's starting to hire strategic business coaches in addition to hiring life coaches. He said, have you ever thought of maybe coming to work for Tony? And I really, at the time, I said, you know what, I think I'm too busy. And I told him no. But he kept pressing me and pressing me and pressing me. And over time, he wore me down. And I said, look, I will send in my resume. I'll just send it in, never thinking I'd get picked, right? Because when I sent it in, they had about 500 applicants globally. They boiled that down from 500 down to 250, 250 to 100, 100 down to 50. And it's at that time that you get invited to go to all of Tony's, programs. You go to all of the events, you listen to all the CDs, you read all the books. And even after you're done that, doesn't mean you're going to be working for him, because I had to go to Florida to do a live practicum. And that's when I literally, had to meet with Tony Robbins' team. And I had to do some live coaching right in front of, 50 people. And I'm proud to say that when that training was over, I graduated as the number 2 person in the class. And that's when they offered me a full-time job and I took it.
Awesome. Awesome. What was one of the main key takeaways you learned from that experience?
Well, that no matter how far down the rabbit hole you are, whether you're, broke, whether you feel you're down and out, whether you think that there's nothing you can do, everything is possible if you believe it is.
Yes.
And, when I was broke and I was fat and I was getting, divorced at the time, I didn't think that anything would ever, be in my favor or turn into something that I'd be proud of. But I guess the universe had other plans. And I literally did total immersion. I literally stayed up all day and night reading the books, listening to the audios, going to those events, playing full out, coaching anybody that I could get in front of. And, I think I built a lot of muscle along the way, because now I've got a belief that I can coach anybody, anywhere, anytime on anything. because again, I've done the yards, I've done the work, I've played full out. And, I'm pretty passionate about it. This is what I do full time now as a coach. And I also do a lot of real estate investing, both actively here in Vancouver, Canada, where I live. And then I do a ton of syndications throughout many different states in the US. I've got some stuff going on in Costa Rica, and my wife and I own some shares in a company in Brisbane, Australia. Wow. So ultimately, would I ever think that I'd be at this place? Well, not when I was going through the storm, but there's a great quote in Think and Grow Rich, Anthony, where Napoleon Hill says, every adversity brings with it the seed of opportunity. And literally, I got my opportunity to get my butt kicked, and then I got the opportunity to get up, dust myself off, and here I am.
That's awesome. That's similar to what I believe. I say everything happens for a reason, but if you look at it in a positive way, you'll get a positive outcome. Like you mentioned on different podcasts, if you look at it negative, you'll continue getting negative results. So how did that coach help you change that mindset from seeing the negative storm you was in to the positive?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, there's really three things only that you need to think about if you want to go from where you are to where you want to be. And believe it or not, they all start with the letter S, as in Samantha, right? And the first one is your state. That refers to how you're showing up in your body and in your mind and in the way you think. The second one is your story. Your story is really your identity. You're either going to be a victim to circumstance, or you're going to find a way to get through it and become a victor or victorious, right? And then the third one is your strategy. That is, what are you doing to go from where you are to where you want to be? And if you have a recipe or a roadmap or a blueprint where someone else has already done it before you, it becomes a lot easier. But unfortunately, what most people do is they say, just give me the strategy, hand me the strategy. But if you don't condition your state and your story, you could have the best strategy in the world and not be able to bring it to fruition. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. It's like having a solid foundation when trying to build a house, but if you build a house on sand, it's going to crumble.
That's it. And I'll give an example of that. I mean, have you or anyone that you know of in America ever wanted to lose weight?
Yes.
Yeah, we all have. And so if you go and you type the word diet into Google, the strategies are there. If you drive through any city in North America, there's a gym on every 12th corner. So the strategies are there, yet 54% of Americans are obese. Well, why is that? Well, because they haven't conditioned their state, which is their focus and their mindset, right? And they haven't adopted a powerful story, which is, I'm going to keep doing the strategy until this weight falls off my body, right?
Exactly.
So I always, and even my mentor, Tony Robbins, says that you always start with your state, then you check in with your story. And once you do both of those, then you can go execute on the strategy. Does that resonate?
Definitely. That definitely resonates with me. And you mentioned your focus and mindset. I know when changing your perspective, your mindset is key, especially from the story you've been through. How can someone shift the mindset to have a better outcome?
Well, it's really, really getting crystal clear on, a couple things. Number one is to know your outcome. So if you're a millennial who wants to get into real estate, you got to start by knowing, well, what is that outcome? What does it look like? Do I want to do single family? Do I want to do multifamily? Do I want to do assisted living? Do I want to do mobile home parks? Do I want to do historic tax credits? There's tons of different ways to make money in real estate. Maybe you buy and hold, maybe you buy and flip, maybe you're a wholesaler. So you got to know exactly what asset class you want to play in. And then you got to get crystal clear on where, which market, which, A class, B class, C class. How many doors do you want to buy? What's your current price per door? Are you doing it solo? Are you doing it with a partner? And you also got to know what your skill set is. For some people, they love going out there and finding the deal, right? Whereas other people don't like that. They just want to sit behind a computer and underwrite the deal. Whereas some people don't want to find it or underwrite it. They just want to go out there and raise capital. So you got to really know, number one, what is your outcome? And then number two, what is your skill set? Does that make sense?
Definitely. That makes sense to me, is playing to your strengths. with me having like kind of an athletic background, I feel like a QB. A QB is not trying to play every position on the field. He's playing just quarterback. And he has a receiver playing the right receiver position, the same in real estate. Somebody is doing due diligence, somebody else is doing investor relations.
And that's how you put points on the board in the football game. And that's how you put points on the board in acquiring doors in real estate. Great analogy.
Exactly. Yep. Same with the mindset is shifting into do something different than other people have done before. And I heard you mention in the podcast, you wake up earlier than 5 o'clock. I usually wake up at 5, but you wake up at 4:44 a.m. Why?
Every morning.
Why?
Well, first off, I love alliteration. I love words that, start with the same letter and the same letter and the same letter, or the same sound, the same sound, the same sound. I love to rhyme with my little guy. He's 3 years old. And I believe in doing things differently than the average person. So if the average high achiever gets up at 5 a.m. because they want to be part of the quote unquote 5 a.m. club, I want to have the competitive edge. So I get up 16 minutes earlier, and I literally get up, drink a glass of water, sit down and meditate for 30 minutes. Then for the next 30 minutes, I strengthen my body, do some free weights, do the elliptical. I go on my rebounder. It's a little trampoline here in my coaching office. And then from there, I start to read a good book chapter, or I watch a YouTube video, or I, will do something with my vision board, or do some affirmations or incantations, something that really primes my brain to get ready to take on the day. Because I'm telling you, about an hour and a half after I wake up, it's go time,
Yes.
And I'm on the phone with somebody somewhere in the world, or I'm on Zoom, or I'm on a podcast, or I'm doing something on stage because I do a ton of keynote speaking. And really, I feel that morning routine, that habit, and that ritual gives me what I call the competitive edge in life. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. That's one of the keys of having a coach, is that competitive edge. Because somebody like me before, where you don't really have a coach to show you what to do or how to get things done, and somebody else, like for example, Joe Freilich, that has a coach, will challenge you to do something that might push you out of your comfort zone, and then the rest is history. So how do you feel a coaching could help somebody in their investing journey?
Well, it's a super question, and I think a coach is multifaceted. Number one, they're there to help you co-create the outcomes that you want. Number two, they're there to know why you want them, and that becomes the rocket fuel or the juice when times get tough or when you feel like quitting. Number three, a lot of good coaches or teachers or mentors have already done what it is you're trying to do. So they're there to help you turn decades into days. And that's something that I really believe in. And then the last thing is, oftentimes coaches can see things that you can't see, or they know that there's something coming down the pipe that perhaps you haven't thought of. And so why wouldn't somebody take advantage of all of those things? I mean, it's no different than a sports coach. Tiger Woods, he's got a swing coach, a putting coach, a chipping coach, a trainer, a physiotherapist. He's got all of these different people because he's only after one thing, winning. And if you want to win in real estate, I highly encourage you to hire a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a trainer, get an accountability partner, read good books, go on bigger pockets, listen to great podcasts, or do whatever it takes. Because, man, I'm telling you, if there's one thing I know, it's real estate is a team sport. It's not a solo sport.
Definitely. I learned firsthand how much this is not a solo sport as some people would think. It's very much, as other has mentioned, relationship business. It's meeting other people, building relationships. With that, what is one of the things that's driving you right now as far as being as a real estate investor or as a coach? What's your main motivation?
Well, that's a two-part question. As a coach, my mission is to give back to other people the same way my coach gave back to me when I was down and out, right? So I said, if God and if the universe helps me survive this, which it did, that I was going to commit my life to helping other people do the same. So coaching really, fuels my soul. Whereas real estate is something that, what drives me there is diversification, meeting new people, going into new asset classes. I mean, I've done single family, I've done small multifamily, I've done large multifamily. You know, I'm in a deal with a group that has 505 self-storage units in Key West, Florida. I bought into an eco-friendly resort in Costa Rica. And as I mentioned, we've got, you know, a builder down in Brisbane, Australia called Global Housing. So I really am one of those guys that, you know, wants to learn and to grow in my base and my knowledge so that I can help other people go out there and do the same. Does that resonate with you?
Definitely, definitely. I like how curiosity, as far as learning, helps fuel your direction. It fuels you, okay, I want to learn about self-storage, or work with people in self-storage, or learn about this topic, I'll go into that topic. So why did you invest in different asset classes? Why not stay in just single family housing or something that's familiar to somebody else?
Yeah, well, again, I think it's different strokes for different folks. Some people want to do one thing and do it really well, like my client, Joe Fairless. You
Mm-hmm.
know Joe. I think
Mm-hmm.
you know I've been coaching Joe for 6 years. We're actually in our 7th year together. And, you know, he is nothing but, you know, value add multifamily apartment buildings, right?
Yep.
So he does one thing and he does it very well. And, you know, fast forward, when I met Joe, he didn't even own one door of an apartment building. And
Wow.
today he owns over 6,000 doors, you know, and
Wow.
has $600 million under assets managed. Not bad for a guy from Texas. And I love Joe, you know, and then you get other guys who really, you know, want a little bit more variety. They want to try some different things. They might try, you know, multifamily. They might try assisted living. They might buy a mobile home park. They might, you know, do some single family portfolio purchases. You know, and I've got so many clients that have literally done pretty much everything that you can do in real estate, right down to note buying and environmental tax credits. So at the end of the day, different strokes for different folks. I think you got to find something that interests you, something that you're passionate about, and then ultimately stay the course and do one thing really well, or perhaps open it up and diversify. You know, especially I think some of the people listening to this podcast that may be a bit younger, you know, like millennials getting into real estate, you might want to try a few different things to find your sweet spot, you know, and then from there, you've got your late 20s, early 30s, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s to really ring it home.
Oh, yes, I definitely believe that. So what drives you? What motivates you to get up at 4:44 a.m. to say, okay, this is what I'm going to accomplish today. This is why.
Yeah, it's really, my why is really, you know, to help other people. My why is really fueled by giving my wife and my 3 sons, you know, an exceptional life. I mean, we have a beautiful home. We have all the things we could ever want, but even more than the stuff is we like to travel. So oftentimes, usually 3 to 4 times a year, you know, we'll be, you know, going off to Australia or Hong Kong or Costa Rica or Alaska. I mean, this Friday we leave for Italy and Spain for 2 weeks. So ultimately, we don't, you know, say that to beat on our chest. We have worked very, very hard to design our lives this way so that when we're working, we work. And then when we go out of town, you know, we're able to enjoy some of the finer things in life. And, you know, is it easy? No. Is it rewarding? Absolutely. So I believe, you know, it's like Henry Ford said, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, well, you can't. It's that simple.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. What is one place you want to travel to, but you have not visited yet?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a couple places that come to mind. I mean, I am fascinated with, you know, tropical places.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, Costa Rica is pretty tropical. I've been to Thailand, which is beautiful, but I'd like to go to Bali. You know, I'd like to go to Bali next, or the Maldives, something like that. I've also never been back to where, you know, my ancestors are from, and, you know, that's Scotland, right? So I think that it would be very cool to see where, you know, the grandparents and the great-grandparents and the great-grandparents of grandparents came from. And, you know, I've been to a lot of countries, but there's still many more that I'd love to visit.
Definitely. I believe that. I have not been outside the United States yet, but it's definitely on my list.
That's awesome. And don't forget Canada. Canada is a great place to come and visit.
Oh, yes. Definitely. I live in Minnesota right now, so it's just a hop, skip north, and I'm there.
That's it.
So what do you want to instill in your children or for other children that are growing up? Because I believe, especially with me having a 4-year-old daughter, that eventually it'll be a shift from me being more passive and the children taking over more often. So what do you feel should be instilled or the children should look up to as far as us being investors and entrepreneurs and them seeing us growing up and watching us seeing how we act and how we do things?
Oh, I love the question. There's multiple things I'll share there. The first of which is, don't be afraid of hard work. If it was easy, if real estate was as easy as hitting a button, everyone would quit their corporate job and become a real estate investor. It is not easy, but it is simple when you follow a step-by-step roadmap or blueprint. So the first thing I'd say is be prepared to roll up your sleeves and do the work. The second thing is I would say is find your passion. Again, life's too short to do things that you don't enjoy. If you want to be a doctor or a nurse, go do that. If you want to be an accountant, do that. If you want to be a fireman, go do that. And if you want to have freedom, I think that real estate is one of the greatest wealth vehicles on the planet for our kids to learn that you can make a massive impact and a massive income, and then obviously get the tax advantages that the government offers, because the government wants us to go out there and, improve housing for people all over the United States, because if we don't, then the government's going to have to find a way to house everybody, and they just, can't do that. So again, I go back to hard work. I go back to, passion. And I always say to people, follow your hunger. If you've got really good people skills and you're hungry to meet more people, real estate is a great place to do it.
Oh, yes.
If your hunger is to, crunch numbers and kind of do the back end and maybe run the asset or, optimize a property, then do that. But really, I think that breeds confidence. And the more confident that you get, the more experience you have, the easier it is going to be to navigate a life where you find balance, And a lot of people don't know how to find balance. It's like work, come home, tuck the kids into bed, get to sleep and get up and work hard. Well, that's okay. But what if we do find a little bit of, balance where we find flow? Yep. Because you can hustle at work, but you can also find flow in your, relationships, in your sports activities, in travel, in raising beautiful children. I mean, I got to see your four-year-old daughter, and she's a princess before we started the podcast. And man, she can be, do, and have anything if her father lets her know that. And, it speaks to what my wife, Lisa, and I are really proud to be launching here in the month of October. And that is a new children's book. And if you want to hear about it, I'd be more than happy to share it.
I would love to hear about it.
Yeah. Especially for someone like your daughter. I mean, for years, decades, eons, it seems that, society has taught children the alphabet by reminding them that A is for apple, right? And B is for boy, and C is for cat, and D is for dog, and E is for elephant, and F is for frog, and all of those things. Well, my wife is so passionate about changing the way that young people think that we have just finished writing and we're about to publish her second children's book called A New Alphabet for Humanity. And the New Alphabet for Humanity is meant for kids that are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, where we teach them different words for the alphabet. Like A is for abundance, and B is for bravery, and C is for compassion, D is for diversity, E is for empathy. And it goes on and on and on, because can you imagine what this world would be like if we taught those words to our 4-year-olds, instead of them waiting till they're 25 and 28 and 33 and 46 to figure it out?
It'll be a much more cohesive, diversified world is what I'm seeing when that comes about. Because even now when I got into real estate, I'm hearing a lot of people saying, oh, there's not enough deals. But if you look at it or you change your mindset, there's abundance of deals if you have the right mindset. And to start that at 4 or 5 and continue on, it'll be phenomenal. Looking forward to getting that book.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get you and your daughter a copy of it, because I'm telling you, it's a game changer. And
Definitely.
Really, we as parents have a duty, and we as, people in personal growth and personal development almost have a responsibility to really, ask, it's great to do it for adults, but what are you doing to improve the lives of kids? Because they truly are the future. Would you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. So, how did you get into coaching the top, I want to say, in my eyes, the top investors like Dan Hanford and Todd Dexheimer? How did you get in contact with them? How did they get in contact with you, I should say, to
Yeah.
have you as a coach?
Well, thank you. And yeah, it's an absolute treat to coach Joe Fairless and Todd Dexheimer and some of the more notables that make the podcast circuit. I don't directly coach Dan Hanford. I coach his partner, Danny Randazzo.
Okay.
Introduced me to Dan Hanford, and I've done, a couple of deals with Dan Hanford this year, and he's an absolutely solid guy, as is Joe Fairless, Todd Dexheimer, Andrew Campbell, Holly Williams, Dave Thompson, Jason Yarusi. I mean, the list goes on. And Tyler Chesser is another one. Evan Holiday is an up-and-comer. These people have literally found me because of two things. Number one, my relationship with Joe Fairless, and ultimately, number two, my passion for coaching and real estate. And so obviously, Tony Robbins has a great quote where he says, success leaves clues. And ultimately, Joe's been very successful, and some of these people have wanted to model it. And that's really, how we've connected.
Definitely. I believe that. So with coaching and real estate, how are you achieving all of this? How are you achieving your day-to-day success? You mentioned earlier you get up at 4:44:18. What is different parts of your routine to help you achieve success?
Well, it's really cool that I have, a pretty regimented routine and schedule for my consulting, for my coaching, for my keynote speaking, for my real estate activities. But truth be told, I've got two coaches. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And my two coaches, are people who are always constantly challenging me to go to the next level. And I also have an accountability partner who kicks my butt regularly. So between all of those and literally, cheerleading and championing myself to stretch, I find that it's a unique way to always ask, how can I grow? And if people have a growth mindset, that is what I believe is one of the number one things that you need to have to constantly continue to keep climbing what I call the ladder of success. And you're familiar with the ladder of success because I shared it at Todd's event.
Yep.
And, there's 6 rungs on that ladder. And the first rung is poor. It's where you do things poor, like property management. And if you do poor property management in today's world, you're not just going to get poor results. You're going to get painful results. Would you agree?
Yep. Oh, yes.
Right. So why do something on the first rung of the ladder when you go to the second rung, which is good? Now you show up and you do things good. But remember, there's 6 rungs on the ladder. So don't just be good today as an investor when you could go up to rung number 3, which is great, or rung number 4, which is excellent, or rung number 5, which is outstanding, or where Joe Fairless and some of these other rock stars play is at the highest level on the ladder, and that is what I call extraordinary or extraordinary. Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. Love it. Extraordinary, which is, I believe, everybody should be achieving the next level. Is kind of pushing outside their comfort zone to achieve that next level.
It really is. It really is. I love that you said that because, again, for you to go from where you are to where you want to be, you got to stretch. You got to stretch in your belief systems. You got to stretch in your belief around finding deals, funding deals, running deals, attracting investors. I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And it's not easy, but it is simple, again, when you are defiantly committed to your outcomes.
That is true. I believe that. How is your coaching, since you have 2 of them, which amazes me because most people have none or at minimum 1. How are your coaches stretching you to help you achieve your goals you set up for yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's really, getting outside my comfort zone and saying, okay, you've achieved some success, but what is your next level? How many people do you want to impact by when, and what are those people then going to go out there and do to make this world a better place? And ultimately, as I do more one-to-one coaching, more group coaching, more masterminds, more speeches in front of, 300-400 people on stage. It really is me always up leveling myself to deliver way more than what people think they're going to get. And I think you experienced a little bit of what I can, bring from stage, where people are way better off after my 45-minute keynote than before it started. And I don't say that to beat on my chest. I just say that, you know what, I've invested $250,000 into my personal development journey. That's an actual statistic. It's a lot of money. And I've hired some of the best. I've gone to a lot of events. I bought a lot of coaching programs, and I failed a ton too. You don't just learn by succeeding. I think that we can also learn by failing, and you're going to know what not to do the next time. So any way you look at it, I think a coach is there to help you get perspective and to keep on keeping on.
That is true. A lot of people focus on not going through failures, but which is sometimes be your best teacher is through failure, like we've experienced before. And I want to ask you real quick, if you're willing to share, what is one of your goals that you're currently working on achieving right now?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I have so many things. I think getting the book out to 1 million people and 1 million children is something that my wife and I have our heart set on. We know the world is better off if kids know those alphabet words than not. Another one is owning, multiple residences around the planet, so that we can literally travel and not just support people in the US and Canada, but do a little bit of work over in Europe, do a little bit of work down under in Australia, and literally, have a well-rounded view of different countries, different cultures, different foods, and show our children what's possible.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why I got into real estate is the experience, not only for myself, but for others as well. So this is what is possible. Just the experience that you could provide and share with others is just amazing. So we're going to shift into my little final fire round. I got 3 questions for you, Trevor. First is, what is your favorite snack?
Oh no, don't start me on this because I'm going to crave it. I am a big, big believer in pizza. I could eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a late night snack. I've always been into pizza. I remember my parents ordering pizza from our local pizzeria, and they couldn't finish it on Friday night. And I'd get up to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and there'd be 1 or 2 leftover pieces for my brother and I, and we would devour them. So started at a young age.
Yep. Awesome. So second question, what is your favorite book of all time?
Oh, that's an easy one. It sits right here on my desk. It has for years. And that is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Awesome book.
I've read it 50 times. I've listened to the audio, hundreds of times. And even my own children can recite passages because I'm often quoting that book or sharing a story about 3 feet from gold, or talking about how Edwin C. Barnes went to work for Thomas Edison and he didn't know how he was going to make it happen. He just knew one day he was going to make it happen. So again, I really love the title. It doesn't say do and grow rich. It says think and grow rich. And that's what I believe is true.
Awesome. Definitely true. It starts in the mindset. It starts with your thinking.
Yep.
So for my final question, what is your favorite thing to help you relax? Like help you unsettle from the busy life of being an entrepreneur and a passive or investor in general?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Well, there's 3 things really I love to do. Number 1 is meditate. Number 2 is to spend time with my family, my wife and my 3 sons. And I love sports. I mean, oftentimes you'll find me on the golf course. You'll find me watching football. You'll watch me, going downhill skiing because we live in Canada and we're really close to Whistler, BC, which is world class. So I think between those 3 things, I really, really love working hard, but I also love playing hard.
You work hard or play hard. That's how I see it as.
Yep.
Awesome. So Trevor, can you let the listeners know the best way to contact you or reach out to you?
Absolutely. The best way to do it is just to go to my website, which is trevor@trevormcgregor.com. You can find out a little bit more about who I am, what I do, how I support people, and all my contact deals are right there for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Trevor, for being on the show. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, thanks for having me on and keep up the good work.
No problem.